The Toronto Raptors were not a good team last year. And when you're not a good team, the worst part of it is the games don't really matter. The Toronto Raptors faithful, the fans who tuned in night after night, shout outs to this community because I know there's a lot of you in here. I know because some of our post game lives, even when the Raptors were 20 games under 500, were very populated. At 1 a.m., 2 a.m. at night, we still had 300, 400 people in here. So obviously someone cared, but the conversation was not my team is better than this team. Scottie really did this to this. It wasn't that. It was I really hope we lose this game because we could really use Cooper Flag. I'm happy to say that at least for now, that conversation is not going to be what it's going to be this year. This year, it's going to matter. The games are going to matter. And yes, if you look at the Toronto Raptors schedule, it is a nightmare for at least, the first 10 games. There is a very strong chance the Raptors start 2-8. But it gets easier from there. And I wanted to talk about rivalries. I wanted to talk about because, it's interesting. The Raptors were not a good team last year. And yet, somehow, due to a plethora of factors stemming from online discourse between fan bases, my guy is better than your guy, this guy got traded for this guy, the Toronto Raptors have actual storylines, real storylines, with at least 8 teams in the Eastern Conference, all of whom are decent teams, all of whom could be playoff teams. No, you do not have a rivalry with the Charlotte Hornets, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Washington Wizards. You don't have a rivalry with those teams, but you don't want a rivalry with those teams. What you want is a rivalry with the top teams, and you have those. Now, the inspiration for this live came up when I was watching the 1991 finals yesterday. I was watching it, to those of you who are maybe newer basketball fans who want to go back and watch Michael Jordan versus Magic Johnson. That was a rivalry. It was a rivalry that turned into a very deep friendship. But Jordan came into the league in 84. Magic was dominating the league as the face of the league, and Jordan had to beat him. They ended up on the same team several times for Team USA, the Dream Team in 1992. So we saw them competing with each other, against each other, but there was something on the line. Who's the best player in the world? Scottie Barnes is not the best player in the world. Him going up against Luka is just more of a thing that you look for, growth. But there's nothing really to prove here. If he outplays Luka, people call it a fluke. But these rivalries will only be strengthened if the Raptors actually are a good team this year, which I suspect they will be. And if Scottie does take that next level jump, because the really cool thing about when a player takes that next level jump is now it is a prove it to the world tour around the league. So in this live, I want to go through the top 8 rivalries in the Eastern Conference, starting with 8 and going right down to number 1, and what you can look forward to when the Raptors are playing these teams. And hopefully we'll add a little bit of juice and storytelling to what is otherwise a league that sometimes lacks in storytelling, if you know what I mean. The Knicks versus the Nets. Who's signing up for that? The Pacers versus the Bulls in 1991 was cinema, man. Reggie Miller versus Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan at the Garden was cinema. Michael Jordan versus everyone was cinema because everybody wanted to prove that their guy was better than Michael Jordan. That's the cool thing about being a Chicago Bulls fans. Everybody hated you. Everybody hates the Raptors. I got to tell you, you're already immediately on the outside looking in. We the North, right? The only non-American team, fan bases, Canada, US. Man, there's like some serious juice on the line here. There's something to this. So let's start with the most tepid rivalry, which was barely a rivalry, but is something. There's something here. And I'm going to start with an honorable mention, and that is the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the Atlanta Hawks have a couple of things going for them. Number one, they're actually supposed to be a good team in the Eastern Conference. If the Raptors want to be a playoff team, it would be helpful to beat the Atlanta Hawks. And of course, a win for you is a loss for them. Someone's got to win these games in the East. That's what Esfandiar Barhani said on the Athletic podcast. He said, someone's got to win these games. Well, there's a lot of talk about the East is wide open, everyone's bad, whatever. But if Atlanta and Orlando and New York end up winning 55, 60 games, those are wins that are not available for the Raptors. If Cleveland somehow just runs buckshot over the East and they win 68 games, those are wins that they're taking away from other teams. So Atlanta being a good team is one thing. The second thing is two of the brightest young stars in Raptors history historically did really well against Atlanta. First, Vince Carter. I don't know what it was about Atlanta. I would love to look at the numbers, go back and look at the numbers, but Vince lit up the Hawks. Scottie is no different. Scottie lights up the Hawks. He's had some near triple doubles. He's had some big performances against this team. For whatever reason, Scottie Barnes versus the Hawks is cinema to me. There's also an extra factor, which is a motivating factor, which is the 2021 draft class. This is one of the best draft classes of all time, in my opinion. No, it has not produced a transcendent superstar like Luka Doncic or LeBron James, but it has produced so many good players, man. It's ridiculous. Scottie, Evan, Cade, Franz. Yeah, that's the top of the top. But then you go down to Alperen Sengun, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Josh Giddey, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Green. It's just on and on and on. Jonathan Kuminga. It's a lot of good players. Cam Thomas. Davion Mitchell might be the 23rd best player in the 2021 draft class. You realize how good a draft class is, that he's the 23rd best player? He was a starter on the Miami Heat last year in the playoffs. It's a good draft class. And Jalen Johnson and Scottie Barnes, for a lot of people, this is a debate. Jalen Johnson obviously started out very, very strong last season. He was about 18, 10, and 5. Good defender. There's some comps here. I'm not even snubbing my nose at it. I think Scottie's a way better player, but this should be a matchup. And what's cool is one of the most dominant positions in the Eastern Conference is the 3-4, which is exactly the position Scottie plays. So your best player is often going to be going up against one of their best players. So we start with the honorable mention and we'll move on from there. Number 9, the Atlanta Hawks. Let's move to number 8. Number 8 is the Miami Heat, the battle. Now, this one doesn't have a lot to do with your star player, Scottie Barnes, although this will be a home game for him on December 23rd, and the Raptors don't play again until December 26th. So that means Scottie's going to be home for Christmas. That's pretty cool. Now, if Scottie is really going to take a step up this year into the upper echelon of league stars, this December 23rd game is a coming out party at home for a kid from West Palm Beach. Miami is not that far away. Every game in Miami, his mom is there, his grandpa's there, his uncles, aunts, cousins, little brother, his older brother, his sister, they're all there. This is always, Scottie plays well in Miami for whatever reason. He plays well against Miami. Obviously, this is a kid who is learning how to play basketball at an elite level when LeBron James arrived in Miami. Miami Heat games mean a lot more to Scottie Barnes than most people. So I'll start with number 8 there. But it's also the battle between Maple Mamba and Maple Jordan. And of course, until further notice, RJ Barrett is on this team until further notice. Andrew Wiggins is on this team. You also have Davion Mitchell. Now, there's a lot of things that create rivalries. Obviously, one thing that creates rivalries is storylines, right? Storylines like my guy's better than your guy. But another thing that creates rivalry is old bad blood in playoffs. But another thing that creates rivalries is you traded a guy to that team. The best rivalry in the league right now that everyone's really looking forward to is Luka versus the Mavs, AD versus the Lakers. Oh, they threw them away, and now they get to prove to the other team. That's the game within the game. That's pretty cool. Davion Mitchell ain't Luka Doncic, but Davion Mitchell did get dumped to the Miami Heat. Davion Mitchell did want to be here, at least, for the time being, although I've heard some stuff through the grapevine after that he wasn't too happy with how he was used here. But that being said, Davion got a lot to prove. He got a nice little contract with the Miami Heat, 2 years, $24 million. You think those, like him going up against Jamal Shed, the guy that the Raptors prioritize over him, doesn't have a little bit of weight? Scottie Barnes going up against Bam Adebayo, that's got to have some weight to it. Norman Powell, the guy who got unceremoniously dumped, wanted to be a Raptor forever. That dude is going to be facing off against the Raptors. He's back in the East. He's got something to prove. You traded me for Gary Trent. I'm going to prove to you that you were wrong. Dear Norman Powell, you do not need to prove to us that we were wrong to trade you. Believe me, bro. Everybody in Raptorland knows. Everybody loves you. Shout out to Norman Powell. There's a lot on the line here in this rivalry. So that's my number 8 rivalry. And there's already some stuff there, yo. There's like an actual storyline here. There's something on the line. Scottie's going home. The battle between the two best Canadian prospects probably of all time, both of whom were compared to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, neither of whom have come close to achieving that level of success. But nevertheless, there's something here for Canadian basketball fans. But also this Davion Norm versus the teams that dumped them element, right? Scottie versus Bam. That's cool. So there's some multi-layered to the number 8. Let's go with number 7, the Orlando Magic. Now, this is interesting. Magic fans and Raptor fans love to go back and forth online and debate one of 3 comps. Scottie versus Jalen Suggs, because that was the draft. The Raptors picked Scottie. They were supposed to pick Suggs, according to the experts. And we've been debating that shit ever since. Now, that debate has been long cleared. We are no longer, hopefully, having that discussion. But that doesn't mean that Orlando Magic fans have forgotten that they have another guy from the 2021 draft class who's pretty damn good. And some people think he's better than Scottie Barnes, and that's Franz Wagner. So that's another comp that's constantly there. And they definitely guard each other a lot. And then, of course, you got Paolo and Scottie. This is like Scottie versus the Magic. This is not really even the Raptors specific thing. There's also another storyline, which is Darko Rajakovic has often been very credited for Desmond Bane's ascent as a star in the NBA. Well, this is like master versus apprentice sort of situation, right? You think Darko is going to have a little bit of extra juice guarding, one of his former players. So there's something there between those two teams. There's also the fact that the guy who put together the Miami Heat, the guy who drafted Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, the guy who drafted Paolo Banchero, is a former general manager of the Toronto Raptors, Jeff Weltman. So there's a lot of history between these two teams, and there's a lot of animosity online between these two fan bases about which team's better. Now, the Magic are better. The Magic were better last year. They were better the year before, and they're probably going to be better this year. But can the Raptors make it close? Can they get one on them? I think that could be cool. So that's my 7th rivalry. Man, I'm already starting in 2 very good places, and that's like, number 9 was decent, honorable mention. Number 8 was good. Number 7, there's a lot of Scottie stuff here. Let's talk about number 6. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers were asked last year. They were really bad. Their pick is owed to the OKC Thunder. So they have, there's some reason to be good here. There's a lot of layers to the rivalry here, and a lot of it stems from history. First of all, this is a conference rival. This is also a division rival, right? This is a division rival. The previous 3 teams were not division rivals, but now we're getting into division rivals, which is you're going to face them 4 times. There is that Joel Embiid stepping on Scottie's foot in the playoffs. This is going back to 2022. There is 2019. Kawhi Leonard hits the shot to end the series. Joel Embiid cries like a little baby. There is, of course, Joel Embiid's relentless antics throughout the years, the airplane, all that stuff. If he plays, he's going to get booed. He is absolutely hated, right? He is absolutely hated in Raptorland. His antics, diving into things, punching Ken Burch in the face. There's so many things this guy's done. But it also comes back to the 2 most pivotal moments in Raptors history, as far as I know, came against the Sixers. The first in 2001, when Vince Carter misses that shot to send that game over the edge. I just watched that game again yesterday. Oh, man, the pain that I felt when Vince missed that shot and Mo Pete hugged him. And then the catharsis you feel, at least from the perspective of a 2025 Raptor fan, to know that Kawhi made that exact shot on the opposite end just 18 years later to win in Game 7, game tied, wins it. Like, it's so crazy, the rivalry between these two teams. And who knows? If the Sixers are good, there's also other stuff. VJ Edgecombe, Baylor. Jacoby Walter, Baylor. One guy literally replaced the other guy. So I'm sure they're familiar with each other. They may even guard each other. They may even play against each other. They may even put up 20 points against each other. So there's some stuff here. There's also double layer here. Nick Nurse, the former bench boss, the guy who Scottie Barnes did not allegedly, I'm not going to put words in Scottie's mouth, didn't like. Asked about it. Did you say hi to Nick Nurse? It's nice to see him, I guess. Right. So there's something there. If Scottie really does emerge as a star, all these games against Philly, November 8th, November 19th, January 11th, January 12th, these better be circled. These are the games that I'm going to take off of Nick Nurse's plate. And then there's, of course, the element of Kyle Lowry. Lowry plays for the Sixers right now. He's the greatest Raptor of all time, loved, beloved by all Raptor fans. I love him a lot. And this might be his last go around. Who knows? So that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, the Kings of the Eastern Conference. Luckily, the Raptors only play these guys 3 times, not 4. Unluckily for the Raptors, and they're not a division rival, but they are a conference rival. And they might be the conference kings. They might be a 68-win team this year. They are the prohibitive favorites to come out of the East. This is going to be a really tough test early in the season for the Raptors, and they have to face them 3 times before December 1st. This could be 3 losses. The Raptors struggled heavily against this team last year. There is the added, rivalry of Evan Mobley versus Scottie Barnes, the raging debate. There's also the Darius Garland breaks. The Raptors injured, I think it was Gary Trent who injured Darius Garland. Then last year, Darius Garland injures Emmanuel quickly, pretty much torpedoes his entire season, starting it out. IQ was cooking. He was doing great. There's the highlight clip of Scottie Barnes tossing over Jared Allen. There's so much here. Scottie loves to go at Evan Mobley. They are Team USA teammates going back to their childhood. They were picked 3 and 4 in the 2021 draft. They were neck and neck for the Rookie of the Year. There's a lot of debate here. This is not an easy game for the Raptors to win, but this is David versus Goliath here. And you know what? Scottie has reinforcements now. They don't have a great matchup for Brandon Ingram or Scottie Barnes, in my opinion. I don't think the Raptors have the greatest matchups for Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland either. So it's going to be it's going to be a real chess match between Darko Rajakovic and Kenny Atkinson. So this could be a really, really cool one. Now we go to the top 4. So that's 5. Damn. We got 6 and 5. They're so layered. There's a lot of layers there. Let's go to number 4, the New York Knickerbockers. Friends to foes, friends to enemies. Scottie Barnes and OG Anunoby were once inseparable in Toronto. I thought their partnership in Toronto would never end. And unfortunately, OG gets traded. But it was RJ Barrett who got dumped. It was RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley. They told Emmanuel Quickley, you're not worth the contract. They told RJ Barrett, you're an overpaid asset. And they dumped both to Toronto. Now, RJ was happy to go home. Emmanuel Quickley may not have felt nearly as pleased about the idea of having to be dumped. But Knicks fans have had a lot to say about RJ Barrett since he's left. Happy he's gone. He was overpaid. We're just happy we have OG. And obviously, since that trade, these two teams have gone in very opposite directions. The Raptors, were close-ish to 500 when they made that trade, or a little bit under 500. They've been significantly under 500 since they made that trade. And the Knicks, they've made a couple of deep playoff runs since they made that trade with OG. There's, of course, the little finger gun thing that Scottie Barnes did with Mikal Bridges. There's obviously, they got some size in the middle. Jakob Poeltl versus Mitchell Robinson. There's Karl-Anthony Towns. There's Scottie Barnes. There's a lot here. Jalen Brunson versus his former backup Emmanuel Quickley. There is also the history of the two. This is the 2 biggest markets on the East Coast. All right, Toronto versus New York. These are the 2 biggest cities, in my opinion, 2 of the best cities. These are my former home team versus. I mean, this one probably this is getting a benefit boost because of me, because I'm a former Knicks fan who lived in New York, moved to Toronto, became a Raptor fan. This one's cool to me. This also brings me back to when I moved to Toronto, because at that time, the Knicks were facing the Raptors in the playoffs. They bumped off Tracy and Vince. And then the next year, Tracy leaves. Vince Carter beats Latrell Sprewell, Allen Houston, and those dudes, JYD, Mo Pete, those guys, they make it through. And that's how they even get to Philly. So there's a little bit of a rivalry here. And that's my 4th. Let's go to the 3rd. Now, this one feels personal. Now, what's cool about this one is it's also pretty multi-layered. There is, of course, the fact that the Raptors dumped Gary Trent Jr. And I don't think Gary Trent Jr. was nearly significant enough for Raptor fans to be like, oh, I can't wait to see Gary again. It's not quite Pascal. It's not quite Fred. It's not quite OG. I don't think we knew him well enough. I don't think we had enough success with him to care that much. But this Giannis versus Scottie thing has been there. Not only is Scottie compared to Giannis very often, the two have been discussed in a multitude of trades going back 3 years now. There's always some segment of Raptor fans that are just like, "Oh, if we could trade Scottie for Giannis, if we could trade Scottie for Giannis." There's so many Raptors media members who are on record saying they would do this trade in a heartbeat. There was obviously for years a Giannis, to Raptors connection. Giannis was the guy that we saved up for in free agency after Kawhi left. There was a thought that maybe showing Giannis what we did for Kawhi's brand here, how much success we had with him here, given the toxic and complete ineptitude of the Milwaukee Bucks organization, that maybe if Giannis were to go somewhere, he would come to the north. He would come to Toronto. He obviously doesn't mind the weather. He's from Greece. Toronto has a huge Greek population. This idea of pulling Giannis to Toronto has always been there, but now Giannis is staying put, and he's got some reinforcements, and he's got Miles Turner, and Damian Lillard is gone. But this Scottie versus Giannis thing is personal because Scottie's heard it, man. He's heard it. He's seen it online. Oh, they want to trade me for Giannis. And you know what? That's quite a compliment. The idea that people think that that's what you would fetch in the market is pretty cool. Now, obviously, we're not factoring in the multitude of picks that will be involved in making this swap. But Giannis is the league MVP. Giannis is arguably a top 20 player of all time. He's a top 3 player in the NBA today. And if Scottie Barnes wants to really, really stretch his wings and show the world who he really is, I think this is the player to do it against. Not only do they pretty much play the same position, not only do they have a lot of comparables in their game, but also they have a history. Last year, Giannis was pretty much guaranteed 20 points every single night, 20 to 30 every night. You could pencil it in 20 to 35 every single night. There's no question. Giannis does not have stinkers. Giannis is not, oh, I had 9 points today. But against Scottie, when Scottie took that assignment against Giannis last year, he held him to his worst game of the season, 12 points, 12 points, limited to shot attempts. It was a true defensive masterclass. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Raptors lost that game. However, it would be interesting to see if Scottie continues to take that assignment and if he continues to take it as personally as he has. I think this is a team that is possibly slated to finish around where the Raptors are slated to finish around. And I think that adds a little bit of juice to the rivalry because who knows? Maybe coming down into the season, this is the team you have to face for a play-in spot to get into the playoffs. Maybe, right? It's different. It's different when it's Orlando and Cleveland and New York because those teams are considered by most to be a peg ahead. Now, obviously, if the Raptors come out and are a 55, 60 win team, wow, holy crap, talk about crushing the over. But this is around where the Raptors are slated. They're put in the world with the Milwaukees of the world, right? The Sixers of the world. And I think that adds a little extra juice to these rivalries because who knows, down the stretch of the season, it might be one team has 41 wins, one team has 42 wins, and that's the team that makes the playoffs. You know what I mean? So there is an element to that. Now, that's our third rivalry. Let's go to our second rivalry. First of all, any guesses on our second rivalry? There's a couple teams that I haven't mentioned that are definitely coming up on this list. So I'm just curious if y'all know. The second rivalry is, in my opinion, the Indiana Pacers. Now, a lot of people have automatically penciled the Indiana Pacers to be bad this year. And they might be bad. They might be quite bad. But I don't know if they will be. They have a lot of talent that people are not paying attention to. People who think this was the Tyrese Halliburton show are insane. They didn't just lose Tyrese, though. They did lose they did lose Miles Turner as well. But I think what makes this team go is their pace. Somewhat, play on words there. Andrew Nembhard is Canadian. The Raptors missed on Andrew Nembhard by 1 pick in the 2022 draft class, and that sucks. But also, that's going to be a decision that's going to haunt you forever because he plays in your conference, and you got to watch him. And now he's the starter. Ben Mathurin, right? Benedict Mathurin, another Canadian. Their backcourt is Canadian, and they get to come home and actually show out in front of a home crowd. That's pretty cool, right? Then they got the Pascal Siakam element of this. Allegedly, Masai Ujiri ghosted Pascal Siakam right before he was traded. And this justifiably and predictably annoyed Pascal and was hurtful and the parting of the season. There's so many fans who are still really upset about it. This Pacers team just went to the finals. They were in a game 7, had Pascal won. I mean, I swear Raptor fans would have lost their minds, victory lapping on this. See, I told you this Scottie Barnes guy was not the right guy to build around. I think every matchup against Pascal going forward is a test. It is a test to see if the Raptors chose the right path. Now, obviously, if you go into next season, the Pacers win all 4 games, Siakam averages 40 and Barnes averages 10 in those 4 matchups. I think there's going to be a lot of loud Raptor fans going against each other saying, like, see, we fucked up. You had this dumbass channel, PENSARE Basketball, saying Pascal was going to regress. But look, Pascal's putting up 40 a game. Pascal's carrying the team. I think this is also a huge season for Pascal, actually, because he's paid like a first option. He is, no doubt about it. He's paid like, a franchise guy. And he hasn't been a franchise guy for Indiana, but he is their leading scorer. And his game has changed a lot to accommodate uh, his game has changed a lot to accommodate Tyrese Halliburton, but now he's going to be able to go into his bag a little bit more. He is unquestionably their best player, unquestionably their first option. And so this matchup has a lot of juice. This has former teammates, guy who swapped out for each other. I'll take you back right to Scottie's 2021 draft. Kendrick Perkins on the air. What did he say? Let me pour one out for Spicy P because they're definitely trading him. That was in 2021, yo. The Raptors didn't trade Siakam until late 2023. So, I mean, shoot, like it was on the wall. Scottie's drafting put the Raptors on a different timeline. They chose to build around Scottie instead of forcing Scottie to blend into a Siakam timeline. I think that makes the rivalry interesting. My number one rivalry is the Detroit Pistons. And unfortunately, all these games are going to come later in the season, at which point the rivalry will actually have even more weight. Because at that point, you don't have to guess whether the Raptors are a good team. You'll know whether they're a good team. And if they are both good teams, these could both be teams who are fighting for the middle of the Eastern Conference. These are teams that could be fighting for home court. These are two teams that very realistically could be 4-5 in the Eastern Conference this year and could be facing each other in the playoffs. Wouldn't that be cinema? I mean, there's so much here, right? I don't know if Scottie's going to play for Team Jamaica, but there is another guy who will definitely play for Team Jamaica, and that's Osar Thompson. There's that. There's obviously the Scottie versus Cade thing, right? To those of us Raptor fans who believe that Scottie is the best player in the 2021 draft class, shout outs to Samson Folk for saying he would pick Scottie Barnes over Cade Cunningham, something I'm not soon going to let him forget about, but that's really cool, and I'm happy he did it. I've been going at Pistons fans for years saying we got the best player from the 2021 draft class. They hate me. They hate Raptor fans for it. I'm sorry I brought this upon us, but I'm a very loud voice in Raptorland, and I have pissed off a lot of Piston fans. Believe me, if they smack us by 20, the victory lapping is going to be insane. But these are teams with comparable styles. There's also a geographical connection here. Detroit is right over the Canadian border. So many fans from Canada, from Windsor, except Windsor, Ontario, flood over the border, much to Trump's chagrin, much to his annoyance, go over, much to the Pistons fans' annoyance, and flood, their arena because they're cheap, their seats are cheap. And then there's like rooting for the Raptors. This has been going on for years. This has been going on for decades. And Piston games are always fun that way. There's just a workman, I think the two cities sort of share a sort of culture too, like a blue collar culture. They have 2 stars, both top 5 recruits from the 2021 draft class, both top 5 picks, both former Montverde guys. Also, I mean, there's a little bit of Cade versus RJ Barrett too. I mean, these are 2 guys who in back-to-back seasons led the most prominent prep school in the world. They were both former number 1 recruits. They were compared to each other a lot. So not only has Cade been compared to Scottie by some people now, not only were they former teammates at Montverde, but also Cade directly replaced RJ Barrett, and they were compared endlessly at the time. They have similar play styles. I myself have said RJ is very Cade-like in his, approach to the game. Just, okay, I think Cade's better, but, they're similar in that sense. So there's a lot to this rivalry, and I think the fact that these 2 teams could meet in the playoffs, the fact that these 2 teams have met in the playoffs before, shout outs to 2002, the fact that, there's a real case to be made for both these players. And obviously, Cade had the much better season last year, but the previous 3 years went to Scottie. I think every single matchup between these two teams is a my guy's better than your guy matchup. And I think it's pretty cool. So, uh, I've never seen Cade wear braids. Checkmate, Pistons fans. I don't think that's true. Cade has definitely braided his hair. So that is definitely not true. So look, I say this: rivalries make sports fun. Losing teams do not have rivalries because there's nothing on the line. And I think that makes sports less enjoyable. I think there's a history of rivalries going back to like the gladiators, bro. I think there's so many great rivalries throughout NBA history, from Magic versus Bird to Jordan versus Isaiah, like Jordan getting beat up by the Pistons, going back and back and back. There was Jordan versus Drexler. Oh, you compared him to me? What does it take to get a rivalry? I mean, deep playoff runs certainly help, but a star who typically attacks other stars is usually how it goes. Those that's what creates the best rivalries for me. Anthony Edwards and the Nuggets, there's there's animosity there, but he created it, right? Nikola Jokic is certainly not doing anything to create this. It's Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is the one egging it on, right? He's the one saying Wolves in 5. He's the one who's like, doing that. Luca versus Devin Booker. So that whole thing. That started with Luca. Everybody talks shit when they're up. Fan bases get annoyed and talk a lot. So when Scottie is that type of guy, right? He is the type of guy who's going to attack the rival star. When he's on a good team, that attack now has extra weight, extra meaning. And that's why I'm really looking forward to this year. Honestly, I am. Like, this is about as excited as I've been for a new season in a really long time. I'm excited. I know the Raptors have a really tough schedule to start. If you don't believe me, go look at it. It is absolutely banana sandwich how tough their schedule is to start. I was looking at it and I was like, you know what? 1-9 is a perfectly reasonable expectation for the start. But again, as I mentioned before in the live, it does get a little bit easier from there. It starts to get a little bit better. And again, when you're moving down into April, May, all you want, I think, if you're a Raptor fan right now, forget contending for championships. Unless you get a major trade, you're not contending for championship this year. What are you looking for this year? I think what you're looking for is meaningful growth in your young players. So you want to see growth from Jacoby and Jamal Shedd. You want to see the ascent, at least flashes of an ascent from Colin Murray Boyles, Grady Dick. You want to see these guys because you have a lot of very talented players. You have a lot of talented players that a lot of people in this world believe in. A lot of scouts would tell you that they are very convinced that Colin Murray Boyles is the top 5 player in this draft class. There's a lot of scouts who 2-3 years ago would tell you that Grady Dick is going to be one of the best players in the league. He's going to be one of the best shooters in the league. There's a lot of hope baked into this, and I hope for the Raptors' sake that they're right. Right? There were scouts who back in the early part of the 2024 draft cycle were saying Jacoby Walters was a top 5 pick. You don't have bums here, man. You have real players with like real upside, real trajectories, right? And I understand everybody got him. Everybody got him. As high as I'm on the Raptors, what if I do the same, glazing optimism for the Pistons? Well, they got all these shooters back. Who knows? They might get Malik Beasley back. They got Ron Holland, who was once considered the number 1 pick in his draft class. They got Asar Thompson, who Thinking Basketball called possibly the best defender in the league one day. Like, there's a lot of hope and optimism for all these teams, but all of this hope is not going to result in outcomes that are positive. Some of this hope is going to result in broken dreams. Some of this hope is going to be dashed by injuries. Some of these hopes are going to be, unfortunately, and I pray it doesn't happen to the Raptors or anybody for that matter, but some of these hopes are going to be destroyed by torn Achilles, right? And broken kneecaps and out for the season injuries and heartbreaking outcomes and missed shots at the buzzer and stuff. So to me, the only thing I can hope for as a Raptor fan is that I care about the games in April and that I'm rooting for wins, because rooting for losses the last 2 years has sucked. I never want to do it again. I know I will at some point in my life. If I live long enough, I'm sure that I'll watch another Raptors rebuild, but I don't want to watch another Raptor rebuild for the next 5-6 years. I want to see this go through. I see the pathway to success for the Raptors. And honestly, if you're not somebody who thinks the Raptors can be great. Imagine this. How great do you think the Raptors would be with Cade instead of Scottie? Like, imagine if Cade had the exact same supporting cast. Most people in in the NBA world would pick a team with Cade, IQ, RJ, Ingram, Jakob to come out of the East. Most, based on how high they are on Cade. But when it's Scottie in place of Cade, you see what I'm saying? They're picking them to win 37 games, right? That's insane to me. That's really insane to me because I actually think Scottie's better. So it's the same thing. Like how high? Think about this. How high would people be on the Raptors if the Raptors swapped Paolo for Scottie? So imagine the following team: Paolo, Ingram, Barrett, IQ, Jakob. I think people will be way higher, way higher. So really, the reason that people have the Raptors at 37 wins is because they think Scottie Barnes is going to contribute to 4 wins, and they think Paolo is going to contribute to like 14 wins. That's not reality. That's fiction. So, anyways, that's my view on it. I'm off to Home Depot. We got to put some floors in. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Shout outs to all of our new members. We have about 44 members now, which is really, really cool. I want to give a big shout out to our VIP members, Susan Garrett, Springer, Stanley Kurian, and Pepperjack. If you have not become a member of this channel, please strongly consider it. And Tariq saying, shout out to Home Depot. Yeah, shout out to Home Depot, man. I spent a lot of good days in Home Depot, roaming those aisles, seeing floors. Yeah, man, we're putting in some floors. We're changing our floors. I had a roommate like 6 years ago or 7 years ago, and the air conditioner leaked onto the floor and created gaps in the laminate. So, yeah, bro is adulting. I'm so adult, bro. 15, 16, 16 years ago, I renovated this entire place from the ground up. So took out all the parquet flooring, put in laminate flooring, completely redid the counters, didn't touch the bathroom. The bathroom is how I got this place, but did everything else. Added a yeah, I've done a lot. I've done a lot with this stuff. I'm pretty handy, y'all. I'm Serbian. How you ever met a Serb who's not handy? I don't even think that's possible. Yo, Rob, can you imagine what your live will be if the Raptors face the Pistons in the playoffs? It'd be great. It'd be great. Crocodile Pilot saying Home Depot equals American, Home Hardware equals Canadian. Does Home Hardware have floors? I think I'd have to go to Lowe's, bro. Is Lowe's Canadian? I'll support Canadian. You just tell me, is Lowe's Canadian? You let me know. Absolutely. Yeah, man. That's an identification thing. I don't get it, but every Serbian person I know is pretty much all handy. Lowe's is also American. I think Rona is Canadian. Rona does have floors. Okay. New plan. We're going to Rona. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Enjoy. Have a great weekend. If when this video goes live, let me know what video you want to see me do next. Is there a particular thing you want me to break down? Scottie's defense, Scottie's isolation scoring, RJ's defense, whatever. Y'all let me know what is the next video going to be, and I'll try to do a film breakdown for it. Peace, y'all.